SurePoint Advisors is an investment advisor in Brielle, New Jersey. SurePoint Advisors is registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Registration of an investment advisor does not imply any specific level of skill and does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission.
Welcome to another episode of SurePoint Advisors Financial Roll Call with James Fay. We are 1080 in service. This is a podcast for law enforcement by law enforcement. I am James Fay. I'm a retired law enforcement officer and now financial advisor with SurePoint Advisors. And I'm focused on helping law enforcement officers make educated financial decisions that will directly affect their retirement. I truly believe that this podcast will help accomplish that. All right. So over the past few episodes, we had Anthony Marone come in. Anthony educated us all around mortgages. So I thought, being that there are a lot of moving parts to securing a mortgage, I thought it would be best to spend some time educating our listeners and the law enforcement community on title insurance. Title insurance is an aspect of the mortgage cost that you pay for. So when you break down refinance or obtaining a mortgage on a new home, you'll see that there are certain costs with it, and part of those costs are for title insurance. So I had the opportunity to interview Ron Osadacz. He is a title insurance professional with the Clear to Close title agency, and Ron is also a law enforcement officer. So this is a podcast for law enforcement by law enforcement. So I want to welcome Ron to the podcast, and I want to show you this interview. Take a listen. Welcome to another episode of SurePoint Advisors Financial Roll Call with James Fay. We are 10-8 in service. This is a podcast for law enforcement by law enforcement. All right, I'd like to welcome Ron Osadacz to the podcast. Ron is a title insurance professional with the Clear to Close title agency, and his mission is for all of his clients to experience the absolute best customer service, which is backed by his knowledge and professional experience. So let me also mention that Ron is a police officer with a local law enforcement agency here in New Jersey. And again, a podcast for law enforcement by law enforcement. So welcome to the podcast, Ron.
Thank you, James. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you having me on. I've been watching your podcast ever since you started them back in November. And there's definitely been, people on here, wealth of knowledge, and I feel like I'm walking with giants. So I definitely appreciate the invite.
I appreciate the kind words. And, I'm sure you're aware, we spoke before, that I did start this podcast back in November just to educate law enforcement officers so they can make, better educated decisions in and around their financial future. So let's kind of get into the topic here. So you're aware the housing market obviously has been on a tear for quite some time now. And although with rising interest rates lately, things might start to cool off a little bit.
Yes.
But I do get a lot of calls here or emails in the office from my law enforcement clients with regards to buying a new house or refinancing their existing mortgage. So, and being that there are a lot of moving parts in securing a mortgage, I thought it would be great to have maybe to educate our listeners and the law enforcement community on title insurance. I think more importantly that what a title agency does, right? So what does that title agency do? I think when we all refi, and actually I refinanced twice in 2020. So, when we're talking with our mortgage rep or our loan officer, we get so excited that we're going to lower our monthly payment. We kind of just oversee what the different moving parts are within that process, right? So I thought it'd be great to really speak to that today. But before we get into the topic, can you just take a minute and maybe explain to our listeners a little bit about your career and how you got into the title insurance business?
Yes, absolutely. So I started back in 2011 as a Class 2. So I guess we'll do the law enforcement career first. I started as a Class 2 in Highlands. I did about 2 or 3 years there as a Class 2. Made my way to Aberdeen Township as a Class 2. Always the whole time, a lot of people I'm sure who listen are cops, they could attest, trying to get hired, trying to find a job. So I ended up getting picked up, fortunately, by Highlands full time. And then I was kind of like a ping pong ball. I went back to Aberdeen. It's always kind of where I wanted to be. Highlands, great guys, a great learning experience down there for me. But I landed, right where I wanted to be. So I've been on the job full time now, a total of 5 years. They went in the blink of an eye. I have another, probably 25 to go here, depending. you handle my portfolio, so we'll see. But we're we're rocking and rolling. And then title, I got into title. I always knew when I closed on my house, it was always interesting, the real estate process for me. I always loved the idea of being involved in that for somebody. So I had a couple friends who were loan originators. I had a couple of friends who were real estate agents. So at the time, I didn't really want to get into either one of those and compete with them. I wanted to find my own route where I could assist them along the way. And that's how I found title. And I really think it's my niche. I enjoy it. It's something that I never would have, I didn't plan. I fell into it, but I'm happy that I did.
That's great. That's great. And I'm sure it's supplementing the income. Obviously, a young guy like yourself has a young family, so I'm sure that's always a plus as well, right?
It definitely helps. It's something I didn't think of, getting into it, how much it would help me, but it has absolutely helped me grow. I remember when I sat with you years ago and we're talking about financial planning, I was like, okay, I barely have two nickels to rub together. I'm a part-time dispatcher at a class 2. The future was far away, but things have definitely, it's assisted. It's definitely assisted.
Great. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. So maybe we could start by giving a brief definition of title insurance.
So I'd say that the easiest way to think about title insurance is it's like the Carfax for your house, right? So
Okay.
A lot of people, when they buy a car, you want to know if it's been involved in any accidents or if the title of that car is clean. It's something that's not thought about a lot when you're in the process of buying a home. You're more excited about your interest rate and actually buying and moving into the house. But title is an important aspect. It protects you from any foreign judgments, liens on the home, things like that you can't foresee. But it's our job to make sure you don't have any of those issues down the line.
Right. Okay. So as far as cost and payment of title insurance, how does that work?
So unlike your homeowner's insurance policy or even a mortgage payment where you're making payments monthly, title or even yearly, title insurance is a one-time premium that you're going to end up paying right at the closing table. It'll be in there with all your documents. It's kind of like that old school rotisserie commercial. You kind of set it and forget it, right? So you pay for your title insurance, and it covers you for the life of the time that you have the house. So you shouldn't, if you have a good title company who does a proper search on your house, you should never even think about title again. That shouldn't be an issue for you.
So there's no monthly payment attached to it. It's basically one time. It's built right into the closing costs, and
Yes.
like you said it, forget it, and you're done with it. So
You're done with it.
All right,
you never
great.
think about it.
And I know you spoke a little bit about the different things that a title insurance looks for and make sure that your house is protected from. So maybe you can just explain to the listeners, what are the most common claims filed against the title that you
So
look
the most common claims that they'll search for, we'll search for when we're looking is, tax liens, any kind of judgments that were, pushed against the house. Conflicting wills are also a problem at times where you'll run into that issue. I would say the most common things that you'd find you want to protect against, though, are liens from, either the IRS, local, tax liens from not paying taxes. And unfortunately, if it's missed by a title company, you're the one that now burdens that, which is the whole point of for title insurance, because now you're covered financially. So you could lose your equity in the home, God forbid, or you could even lose the rights to your house. So it's one of those things that it's a small, in the cog of real estate, a lot of people don't even think about it at the closing table, but it's a pretty big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to be stuck with somebody else's burden, right? That can be devastating to anybody's financial plan. So very, very important for our listeners to understand exactly, what those different claims could be and what happens if they're not realized and you now assume them. So that was great information. So let me just ask you this: is title insurance required?
So that's a good question. So title insurance, if you're getting a mortgage, yes, it is. Lenders do require you to have title insurance. And when you think about it, I guess it does make sense, right? The lender wants to insure that house. They're giving you the money for that home. They want to make sure that their investment is protected. At the flip side of that, if you were to buy the house on your own, free and clear, you're the chief of police, you have that kind of money where you can throw out funds like that. No, it's not required, but it is highly recommended. Because I would say if if you want to protect your biggest investment, if a mortgage company wants to protect it, you should also, on the flip side of that, want to protect it as well.
Right. Okay. So basically, if you're going to secure a mortgage, title insurance is required. If you're going to buy the house outright and you are now the owner, it's not required, but suggested.
It's not highly suggested. I like to gamble.
Right.
I think we all do. Sports books in New Jersey are now legal. You can go on there, but you don't want to gamble. You don't want to gamble on your future.
Sure. Right. Now, I know you kind of touched on this earlier in the interview here, but maybe you can explain to our listeners how long title insurance is good for.
So that's the best part about it. Again, goes back to that set it and forget it kind of mindset, right? So you at the closing table, you close on your deal, you close on title. Title is good for as long as you own the house. And if the title search is good, you shouldn't even have to worry about it ever again until you're looking to sell that house, and even then not worry about it. So it's good for the life of as long as you have that home, title insurance is good.
Excellent. So that was a great overview of kind of title insurance and what it protects, what it looks for, and what it can protect you against, I guess, right? But, you got into this profession. So let me just ask you, what is the role of the title agency?
So the title agency actually has a big role. In the puzzle of real estate, it's a small like little corner piece. Sometimes gets lost. But in the overall transaction, people don't think about it, but it does play a big role. We're protecting your biggest investment, largely your biggest investment you're probably ever going to make in your life. We're protecting that from anybody else coming in and saying, hey, look, I understand you've been paying for this house now for 10 years, but here's this judgment. This house is actually mine. So we're pretty much taking on that role and saying, hey, look, we have you covered for the life of this loan. We have you covered and protected. And that's kind of why I enjoy doing this, right? Like as a cop, you like to protect people. On this side, you're doing kind of like the same thing. You're just protecting their biggest asset.
Yeah, sure. Always helping, right? Always helping.
Trying. All right, trying.
Yeah. The one big thing about law enforcement, as opposed to what you do now and what I do now, is, in law enforcement, we have to help everybody. Doesn't matter what, they might have just tried to kill you, hurt you, whatever. You still have to render first aid or assistance to them. Here, I can tell you in finance, I get to help. I get to pick and choose who I want to help, and that's it's a bit of relief. I love to help people as well, but now I get to pick and choose who I want to help. So
it's very true. It's just it's a different field, and I'd say doing title, it's not. I get yelled at probably a lot less doing title. So
I'm sure. So that's great. Well, that was certainly a lot of information for our listeners to digest. And am I missing anything that maybe you would like to share with our listeners?
I think the biggest thing to know when you're doing title and you're closing a transaction is that a lot of people don't even realize that they just sign their title documents. A lot of people don't realize what company they utilize to sign their title documents. I would say the biggest thing is you could shop title like you can shop any other thing. And I recommend doing so because not every title company is the same. Not talking badly about anybody, but not every title company is the same. Some are better than others, and you have that right to go out there and to shop. Title prices are fairly regulated in the state, so they're all going to be the same. So or relatively the same. So really what separates it is the service and the people on the back end that are securing your loan. So you do have the right to shop it.
Great. Awesome. Excellent information. Well, Ron, I want to thank you for educating our listeners, and you're a wealth of knowledge and an asset to the law enforcement community. So stay safe.
Thank you, James. I really appreciate having me on. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. All right. Great. Ron gave us a lot of great information about title agencies and what title agents do for us during the closing process of obtaining a mortgage, either for a new home or refinancing. So 10-11, prepared a copy. Let's review what we learned today during this episode. So title insurance is a way to protect yourself from financial loss and related legal expenses, right? And title insurance comes with no monthly payment, right? It's just that one-time premium paid at closing. So when you see those closing costs and you break it down, part of that is for the title agency and title insurance, all right? The most common claims that are filed against the title are back taxes, liens, and conflicting wills, are very important. That's a common claim that's filed against it. So now lender's insurance, or lender's, I guess, title insurance is required, but owner's title insurance is optional. And title insurance is valid as long as the insured owner or his heirs hold the title to the property. Title companies make sure that the seller has the rights to sell the property to the buyer. So they, again, just like the agency that Ron works for, Clear to Close, they make sure that the title is clear to close. All right. So that was certainly a lot of information for our listeners to digest. And I want to thank Ron for educating our listeners and the law enforcement community. He's a wealth of knowledge and certainly an asset to the law enforcement community. If anyone is interested in learning more about title insurance, you can contact Ron directly at Clear to Close Title Agency, or feel free to contact me here in the office, 732-876-3777, and I can certainly make that introduction to Ron for you. All right. So with that, this has been another episode of SurePoint Advisors Financial Roll Call with James Fay. We are 10-7 out of service.